Okay, so here's a question. How can an economy just crash, especially when, on the surface, everything seems totally fine? And why does the world feel so incredibly unpredictable sometimes? Well, the answer, it turns out, isn't in the data or the spreadsheets, it's in the invisible stories we tell ourselves. These are powerful narratives that are secretly shaping our reality, and today, we're going to dive right in. All right, to really get a grip on just how powerful these stories are, let's try a little thought experiment. Imagine an alien, right? It's sent to Earth with one mission: observe our economy. It takes a bunch of notes in 2007, then comes back and does the exact same thing in 2009. So what does this alien see?
Well, our alien would be completely baffled. I mean, it would look around and see that all the physical stuff, the office buildings, the factories, all the knowledge packed into our universities, it's all still there. In fact, technology's even a little bit better. And yet the outcome is an absolute disaster. We're talking households suddenly $16 trillion poorer and 10 million more people out of a job. If you're just looking at the physical world, it makes zero sense.
So what was the missing piece of the puzzle? What couldn't the alien see? Well, it wasn't anything physical. It was something invisible. The only thing that really, truly changed between those 2 years was the story. See, in 2007, the collective story was one of confidence. Housing is stable, bankers are trustworthy. By 2009, that entire story had shattered into a million pieces. And the collapse of that belief, it had absolutely catastrophic real-world consequences. And this right here brings us to the absolute core idea of what we're talking about today. It's a concept that really helps explain why these stories can be so much more powerful than any statistic you can find. It's a concept called an appealing fiction. Now, what is that? It's basically a story you're more likely to believe simply because you desperately want it or need it to be true. It plugs directly into your biggest hopes and your deepest fears. The more you want something, the more likely you are to just grab onto any narrative that even hints it could happen, and you start to overestimate the odds. It's like a cognitive shortcut, but it's one that's driven by pure desire. Just take a look at this quote. It's from a woman on Armistice Day in 1918, the end of World War I. After all the absolute horror of that war, the desire for lasting peace was just overwhelming. So when she says there will never be another war, she's not just expressing a simple hope. She's fully embracing an appealing fiction. The need for that to be true was so strong, it made something pretty unlikely feel like an absolute certainty. So that begs the question, right? When are we the most vulnerable to these kinds of stories? Well, it turns out it's exactly when the stakes are at their absolute highest. So let's really dig into that. What is it about desperation, when we're talking about our health, our money, our entire future? What is it about that feeling that makes us just lower our guard? Why do we start believing stories that on any other day we'd probably question? It's basically a trap, and it works in a few pretty clear steps. Okay, so first, you're faced with a really high-stakes problem. That creates this overwhelming fear, or maybe a really intense desire. Then you find a story, and honestly, it can be any story, that offers just a tiny sliver of hope. And here's the crucial part. You latch onto that hope, and you start to massively, massively overestimate its chances of actually coming true. Why? Because the alternative is just too painful to even think about. And you see this trap play out all through history. I mean, for centuries, people believed in crazy things like bloodletting or so-called infallible plague pills. It wasn't because there was any evidence. It was because the alternative was, death. And fast forward to today, it's the exact same dynamic in finance. People will listen to these quack commentators because the promise of life-changing wealth is just so incredibly appealing that even a 1% chance starts to feel like a sure thing. Now, you might be thinking this is just a trap for, desperate or uninformed people. But no, not at all. Even the world's top experts fall for appealing fictions, especially when their careers and reputations are on the line. I mean, just look at the sheer scale of this miscalculation. Back in 2007, the U.S. Federal Reserve's absolute worst-case scenario for 2008 was still positive 1.6% growth. The reality? The economy actually shrank by 2%. The gap between their most pessimistic story and what really happened is just staggering. So what happened there? Was it just a simple math error? Nope. It was a failure of imagination. You see, the appealing fiction for those policymakers was that a full-blown catastrophic recession was just too painful and too complicated to really truly entertain as a possibility. The story that things would probably be okay even in a bad scenario was just way too comforting to let go of.
And look, this isn't just about experts. We all do this. Our own personal stake in something completely dictates the story we tell ourselves. If you're fully invested in the stock market, you need the economy to do well, right? So you're out there hunting for positive headlines. But if you've cashed out and you're sitting on the sidelines, you might secretly be rooting for a recession just to prove you made the right call, and you'll see doom in every single data point. It's the same world, but we're living in completely different stories.
Okay, so this all leads us to one final, really fundamental question. Why? Why are we so hardwired to do this? And it really boils down to a deep-seated human need for comforting stories that give us, at least, the illusion of control.
You know, the source material for this explainer uses a great analogy. It's about the author's 1-year-old daughter. She has no concept of careers or bills or why dad has to work. But she doesn't just wander around confused. She creates a simple, complete story in her head. Dad isn't playing with me, so I'm sad. And honestly, we all do that. We take our very limited, incomplete view of this incredibly complex world, and we build a simple, complete story to fill in the gaps. It makes us feel like we actually understand what's going on.
But not every part of our world is this messy and emotional. Take a look at this number. That's the accuracy of NASA's 10-year forecast for its mission to Pluto. We're talking about a world of hard physics, of incredible precision and calculation. It's a world of near certainty.
And the contrast here just couldn't be more stark, could it? On one side, you have astrophysics, which is governed by these unchangeable laws of the universe. And on the other side, you have investing, a field that's driven not by laws, but by the messy, chaotic, and completely unpredictable emotions and stories of millions and millions of people.
And that, right there, is the ultimate point. We desperately want the uncertain parts of our lives, like investing, to be as predictable as sending a rocket to Pluto. The idea that we are in control, that we can actually calculate the future, well, that might be the most powerful and appealing fiction of them all. It gives us comfort, it gives us confidence, even when it's totally detached from reality.
And so this brings us all the way back to our alien, circling the Earth, seeing all the physical facts, but completely missing the single most important thing driving our world, the stories inside our heads. That alien, so confident that he knows what's happening, while being completely and totally wrong, he is all of us, every single one of us, trying to make sense of this wild, complex world by telling ourselves the stories we need to hear. So I'll leave you with just one question. What appealing fictions are you believing right now?